Roll call.
Knight. Allen.
Here.
Genzick.
Here.
Nichols.
Here.
Pavilio.
Here.
Walkley.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve the agenda.
We have a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Nichols.
Yes.
Genzick.
Yes.
Pavilio.
Yes.
Walkley. Renee's supposed to be here. I expect her to walk in. Allen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, approval of the minutes. Got any discussion?
The minutes from February 15th
Hmm?
should be on the agenda.
Yeah, approve the minutes for February 15th. You got any comments, or
I wasn't here for that one, so.
I can't make a motion, so.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay,
Okay. Allen.
Yeah.
Nichols.
yes.
Genzick.
Yes.
Pavilio.
Yes.
We're good there. Just always like to remind you guys when it does come to the minutes that I always schedule time the day after the meeting so that I can kind of go through my notes while they're fresh, so I don't let them sit for 3 weeks or more before I try and figure out some of my shorthand. So when I do the minutes, I usually start them the next day. I may not complete them that day, but they're done within a couple days. So I just, I definitely try not to let them sit out there for a long time. So that's it for that.
Okay, public hearing, that's your part now.
It's all mine.
All yours.
Great. We have a variance application from Cindy Knitz, and the owner of the property, she lives on Cobb Street, but the property has to do with some vacant property that is located on Whaley Street. There's Whaley Road and Whaley Street. Whaley Street kind of runs from around the hospital around, and it curves, and then it actually runs into Whaley Road kind of by Dunbar's. But there's a over 3-acre parcel out there that is vacant. The owner of the property, Peter Bueller, is here also. And briefly, Cindy has a purchase agreement that is pending, I understand, on 2 things. One is possibly getting a variance for some lot split, lot division. If successful there is also going to be, she's going to later, very soon later, apply for a special land use from the Planning Commission. And I'll get into that, but this is kind of the first step for this, so I wanted to explain that. Quickly, I've got a picture up here of the Whaley Road site. Immediately to the right of this picture, there is a home, and you can kind of see when you stop there like I did and you look, the terrain really drops as it heads to the south there. This is a view of the property from the railroad tracks that run along Whaley Road, and the property that we're talking about, it actually abuts up against the railroad property. I'm not sure if it's owned by the railroad or MDOT. MDOT has a lot of that property out there. This site is wooded. It's approximately 150,000 square feet, 3.62 acres at least. To the south, it's bordered by the railroad tracks, which we just looked at. And to the north is Whaley Street, which we also looked at. There is a low area in the southwest corner of this property. I certainly haven't walked back there. I'm sure there's a lot of mosquitoes and so forth. I don't know if it's actually a pond or just kind of a low area that collects water or a swamp. So it is the topography and terrain is uneven. It's not a flat parcel per se. This particular property is zoned R3 one-family residential. The special land use that Cindy may pursue with the Planning Commission, that has to do with her intention is to put a couple of duplexes on the property. There's plenty of acreage and also a single-family home. So that's where the special land use comes in, is that if in fact the Planning Commission approves the special land use, then she would look at a duplex and, basically what I said. In an R3 zoned residential district, the minimum lot width is 50 feet. The frontage of this property along Whaley Road, it's curved, but I'm sure it's at least 330 feet, 340 feet or more. So there's plenty of frontage to meet the one family, and there technically would be plenty of frontage to meet the requirements if in fact the Planning Commission would approve a duplex on one or two of the lots. Clearly it's a conforming size lot. It's 150,000 square feet. In a perfect situation, if the railroad tracks weren't there, if the topography was level, if you were able to build a street, you could feasibly fit 25, 26 lots on that property within that R3 zoning. But it's just impossible to do because of the site. The frontage on Whaley Street, as I said, is over 340 feet. This is the aerial which all of you have in your packet, which shows the 3.5 acres, 3.6 acres, and it kind of shows off to the area here, the southwest, this low area. It's clearly wooded. There actually are two duplexes that the Planning Commission gave a special land use to, I believe, back in 1994. So there's a couple other duplexes right in this area here already. Ms. Knitz, I'd mentioned she has a purchase agreement pending. She's here before you to request a variance from the 3-to-1 depth to width ratio for a lot split, which is in our ordinance, to allow for up to a 4-to-1 length to width ratio. And essentially the 3-to-1 width ratio, because of the depth here, in a 3-to-1 ratio, she could only get 2 lots in that huge 3.5 acres or 3.6 acres. So a 4-to-1 lot depth, which would technically allow her to get 3 lots, and easily 2 of them would probably be 125 feet or wider. So there's a lot of room there to get 3 lots, but it's the depth to width ratio that is in our ordinance that kind of, she wouldn't, if she wanted to split it into 2 lots, she wouldn't have to come here. There is enough width there, depth. But to get the 3rd lot in there is why she is here, because of that depth to width ratio. I brought up here the Code of Ordinances, Section 2038. It allows for the depth to width ratio not exceeding 3-to-1 for non-platted parcel split. This is a non-platted parcel. The State of Michigan Land Division Act 288, which I think was 1967, it has some wording in it, and I included a copy of the specific section. They have a section in there that does allow for up to a 4-to-1 depth to width ratio for municipalities to have the authority to review, and may allow a greater depth to width ratio than our local ordinance allows, which is the 3-to-1. In that section, which was included in your packet, it specifically refers to the 4-to-1 ratio allowance. Again, using the 3-to-1 ratio, this site can only be split into 2 lots. Using the 4-to-1 ratio, it can easily be split into 3 lots. They'd all be created. They would have adequate frontage on Whaley Street, and they would meet all the minimum requirements. In our ordinance, section 4669, part 2 says to authorize upon an appeal a variance from the strict application of the provisions of this chapter where by reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, shape, or area of a specific piece of property at the time of enactment of this chapter, or by reason of exceptional conditions of such property, the strict application of the regulations enacted would result in peculiar or exceptional practical difficulties to, or exceptional undue hardship upon the owner of such property, provided such relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantially impairing the intent and purpose of this chapter. Really what I think this hits on is the shape of this parcel, and it's narrow in some areas. It's just got a very unique shape. So you've got the shape, plus you've got the topography, which would, limit some of the uses of this property. In another section, the review standards of our ordinance 4669, this is part 4. The code states that in consideration of a variance, the Zoning Board of Appeals shall first determine that the proposed variance will not result in conditions which, and from past others, this is obviously my opinion, my thoughts, but the first one is cannot impair an adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property. The finding is there should be no impact on light and air to adjacent property. The second is unreasonably increased congestion in public streets. The finding is the proposed request should not impact traffic congestion on Whaley Street. There would only be a couple of homes, duplexes there. The third is, would it increase the danger of fire or endanger public safety? We don't feel public safety would be affected. The fourth one that we have to consider is, would it unreasonably diminish or impair established property values within the surrounding area? This variance request for the lot split of the 4-to-1 ratio, it should not impair or diminish neighboring property values. And in fact, if she does get her special land use and builds a duplex or two on the site, it may very well improve property values. And we also know there is certainly a housing shortage in our community. The fifth and final one is, in any other respect, would it impair the public health, safety, comfort, morals, or welfare of the inhabitants of this city? This request should not affect or impair the public health, the safety, the comfort, the morals of the citizens of the city of Cadillac. Staff comments, this lot is very oddly shaped. It has a variety of obstacles to development, such as the railroad tracks to the south and the topography, which slopes towards a low-lying area in that southwest corner of the property. The applicant nor the owner, they did not create this situation. They did not create the obstacles, the railroad tracks and the topography. The notices of public hearing, they were provided both in the newspaper and mailed to all property owners within 300 feet of the site more than 15 days ago. We have received no response from anybody in the community, either for or against the application. We've received nothing. As far as this Zoning Board of Appeals, based on a finding of compliance or non-compliance with the standards of the ordinance, the board can approve with conditions, or deny the variance application. I'm going to leave it there. If you have questions for me, please ask. Ms. Knitz is here, as is the owner of the property at the current time, Mr. Bueller.
Any questions for Mike?
You said frontage on Whaley Street is about 340 feet?
About 340 feet, and some preliminary things that John Wallace, he has a program in his computer where he can kind of lay things out, And with the 4-to-1 versus the 3-to-1, there is room there to get probably, well, we're sure, 2 lots of at least 125 foot or more in width. And that would still even leave another 80, 90 feet to meet the width requirement in the R3 zone, which is 50 feet. And Ms. Knitz is thinking of possibly even one of the splits, building a home for herself, a smaller home. And in discussions with her, she has no intentions of building a home on a 50-foot wide lot. She would probably want to go 75 feet or more, what you would see in an R2 zoned district.
So if she were to take a strip off the south end of that lot and donate it to the city, she could conceivably build 6 or 7 homes at a 3-to-1 ratio even.
Boy,
The problem is that
that, you know what, that's a question.
I understand
I
that.
am certainly not an authority on. We do know, obviously, that, she's going to have to hire a license. But, yeah, I know what you're saying. The city wouldn't want it, but maybe the Land Conservancy would.
The point I was making is just that the lot is too deep. If the lot weren't as deep as it was, she wouldn't be here. We would have nice, roomy lots, and so the ratio is the issue.
To answer your question, yes.
I'm not sure that I had a question more than an editorial comment.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mike? If not, we'll open up the public hearing part of it. You want to speak about anything? Either one of you?
No, I think
We
he's
tried.
pretty much covered everything.
Okay, I guess I close the public
Do you
hearing.
know how you're gonna separate the departments?
My goal, if everything lines up, is probably 125, 125, and then whatever's left over would be for this small little house that I want to build.
Okay.
So each lot would be at least an acre in size.
What kind of duplexes are they gonna be? Do you know?
I submitted plans to John.
Yeah.
They're basically, the front of them look like they're craftsman style. The garage is in the middle and the living space on the end.
Basically, like it's out there already.
Yeah, similar, very similar.
Mhm.
Yeah, it just, the front elevation is a little bit different.
But same
What I can do,
basic
Carl,
idea.
what I can do is when she goes before the planning commission, if you approve this, when she goes before them, she's gonna have to have more details for them, such as a concept and that. And I can certainly image it and email it to you folks, so you can see. You can see. They're attractive. They're attractive.
Good.
Any other questions? Well, if not, public is closed. Looking for, got any questions, or somebody gonna give a motion?
I move to approve because that's the best use you could use of that land right there, I think. I can't see any other use for it.
Got a
Second. Second.
Okay.
Okay.
Your turn again, Mike.
Okay. Gotta write down this first. Nichols,
Yes.
Jensick,
Yes.
Allen,
Yeah.
Cavilio.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay.
We're all set?
Let's party. Another time.
We got any other,
Yeah, exactly.
we have any other meeting, anything we have to do?
No, but I do want to quickly mention, I was beginning to discuss it and I stopped because then we had a quorum. I do anticipate us meeting next month.
Okay.
It may even be a special meeting. We'll have to give a 2-week notice, but it has to do with the Senior Apartments Cadillac Castle, South Mitchell Street. The design and a lot of the stuff they have looks real good. And but the ordinance in the B3 district allows for a building no higher than 40 feet. And I personally, in looking at a concept, thought, boy, when you start adding the peak and all that, it's gonna be over 40 feet. So I anticipate, we've actually got a variance application, but they have to get us more specifics before we can even publish a public notice. But I would then get with you folks, see if you're available for a special meeting. The reason we're talking about a special meeting is there is some application that they have to get to, I don't know if it's a state or federal agency, that must be submitted and in the hands of that agency prior to September 30th. And the Planning Commission normally meets the fourth Monday of every month. And you folks normally meet the third Thursday of every month. So they've asked that, just due to the tightness of the time frame, that if they can get enough information to us, that it's definitely gonna, I believe, come to you folks, but they may ask for a special meeting prior to the third Thursday. But we still have to get a public notice out. So just be aware, I'll keep all of you in the loop.
They're getting a special use permit, aren't they?
Do we want
Planning
to
Commission-
end this meeting first?
Pardon?
Yeah,
Pardon?
we don't really,
Well, the Cadillac Castle, yes, you would have your meeting first before they go. They may not actually have to go to the Planning Commission. The height variance may be the only thing they will need. Because what's really interesting, this is a senior apartment, and while our ordinance calls for any apartments to have 2 parking spots for each unit, livable unit, our ordinance clearly reads parking requirement for senior housing, 1 parking spot per unit. And that was something that was in the discussion, and then when we read it, we go, this is 100% a senior living center. But what would be interesting if, let's say, 20 years from now, they wanted to change it from senior living to, for anybody, unless the parking ordinance changes, they would be potentially out of luck. Unless the ordinance changes. So expect to hear more about that.
okay, cool. During the meeting, any other questions or anything? Sorry, I'm kind of a mess. I'm adjourned.
Adjourn.